Anjani. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ranj.
Okay, I think, yeah, 6 minutes into the meeting, I think we can kick off. Thank you, LG. Thanks, Asif. I'll just introduce myself. I am Kanika Goyal. I am the leader with Bangalore Women Who Code chapter. I am a lead application developer with VMware, working for 9 years for now. And I'm working on full stack technologies at VMware. Current project is majorly on the full stack technologies, which are deployed on, which is basically on Spring Boot and MVC architecture with backend and front end as AngularJS. So that's quick introduction about myself. Now, before I introduce our speakers for the day, you see them, but I would like to introduce about the Women Who Code. And to introduce or give some details around Women Who Code, I'd like to share my screen and let me present. So yeah, so this the open source series is basically, we have come up with this new series as part of Women Who Code Bangalore learning session series. So a quick introduction, a quick detail around what is our mission at Women Who Code. So Women Who Code is a non-profit international organization which is dedicated to inspire the women across globe in the technology space. This organization is majorly aimed to make them excel in the technology careers. So that's our mission at Women Who Code. And our vision is basically we are envisioning a world where women has a substantial proportionately available at all the various levels in the career, in the corporate sector, like technical leaders, as the names called out here, VCs, board members, software engineers, and so forth. So that's one of our major vision at Women Who Code. So if you are intended towards inspiring the women to excel in technology careers, and this is, please mind, this is for men and women both. Though the name says Women Who Code, it is for both men and women collaboratively coming together and basically contribute and collaborate towards this Women Who Code through Women Who Code platform. So basically, when you associate with Women Who Code, what is in it for you? So you can leverage this platform to become a presenter, a facilitator, or as an audience to upgrade your skills, right? So these are bare minimum. In case if you want to upgrade your technology, then you can participate as an audience. If you want to organize events and build up your leadership skills, you can be facilitator. You can do a presentation if you are master in a certain technology and expose and showcase your skills there. So all this is available. So just want to tap on this. And how do you get involved with Women Who Code? These are the meetup links. I'll put these links after the call in the chat window. You can definitely go and review them and be a part of. In case if you're not already a member of Women Who Code, feel free to become a part of it. And this, I think most of the folks, this is majorly for outside. People who, at VMware, we have a VMinclusion Taara program, which is a returnship program for folks, for women who have taken a break from IT and would like to return back to the careers, to the technology space. So there is this program. In case if anyone is interested, do let me know. I can share some more links around and they can sign up. If there are any friends and family, any colleagues who would like to return back to the technology space after a break, this is the program which they need to tap in. And I'll share all the details in the chat window, and please feel free in case any further details required. So with that, I'd like to kick off our first session for open source series. And I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. So we have LG, that's the name with LG. Our first speaker is known and popular in VMware. But yeah, my introduction about her is Lakshmi Gayatri Kundem. She's a senior engineering manager with VMware. She's a passionate leader and demonstrated history of working in cloud native apps. She has deep knowledge around Kubernetes, security, app scaling, Dockers, and containers. She has done several webinars and presentations internally and externally on modern applications, containers, and Kubernetes. She interacts with customers and an active speaker for VMUG, Bangalore, and Mumbai. She's a vExpert and tech evangelist. She's a track chair for GHCI, Women Who Code Director for Women Who Bangalore chapter. She's Smart India Hackathon Judge Mentorship Program, which is run by Government of India. And that is Lakshmi, Gayatri, or LG as first speaker of today for open source series. Let me introduce Asif, our second speaker for today. Asif is an open source enthusiast and an experienced cloud architect with expertise in public cloud, containerization, Kubernetes, microservices, and service mesh. He's staff engineer at VMware, works on different open source initiatives. He has been an active contributor in open source space and majorly in the Kubernetes area. He has helped Apache Service Com community to incubate the project in Apache Software Foundation and lead the community for a successful graduation as a TLP within a year time frame. He is an active contributor and lead for Soda Foundation for northbound plugins. He holds several project management committee positions in ASF like Apache Incubator Project Management Committee, Apache Service Com, Apache Nutex. He was one of the youngest Indians to be invited by the ASF board to become an ASF member. So that's Asif, Mohammed Asif for us, the second speaker of today. Without taking much time, hi Asif, hi Lakshmi, thanks for joining. So without taking much time, I'd like to kick off and handing over the session to the speakers. Thank you.
Thanks, Kanika. Narmada would like to mention that this is the first of the sessions which we are doing in open source series. So I'll give it to Narmada to talk further about the session.
Yeah, guys, good afternoon. So for FY23, we have laid down the plan for open source and for the cloud sessions. So I have attached the screenshot for the cloud, for the open source sessions. So this would be the first launch for the open source series. And today we're going to see about the exploration about what is open source, how we can contribute, and who all can become an active contributors. And in the upcoming sessions, we're going to have a panel discussion with the active contributors as well. So if you want to have more tracks around this open source series, you can also reach out to us and come up with various sessions so that we can plan accordingly. Yeah, LG, it's good to start.
Yeah, thanks, Narmada. Thanks, Kanika. Asif, we can start the slides.
Should I go ahead and share?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it goes. Okay. So do you want to start?
Yeah, sure, Asif. We can go to the next slide. And as you all heard from Kanika, today's topic is to know more about open source, what's in for us, why open source, and all the details around it. So let's get started. So we have a quick question for which you can answer in the Zoom chat, like yes or no, or you have no idea about it. The question is, how many of you have used open source software? Yeah, it's like quite a few of you had used open source earlier. Yeah, so Asif, I think we have a good community of folks who have used open source. And then probably I'll also ask the second follow-up questions. Have any of you contributed to open source in any form? You can say yes or no. Oh, that's fine. Don't feel shy. You can answer. Yeah, great. So then this session will be interesting for both of you who have already contributed and who have not yet contributed. So we'll get started with the talk. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So this is a brief agenda, what we are going to cover. Yeah, we can get rolling. Asif. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, so like what is open source basically? Like we use a lot of softwares, and we know these softwares are like created by lines of codes and a lot of different programming languages we use writing these codes and then packaging it as a software and then using it. So here the term open source basically tells you like all of these coding which goes into the software, these all are available as a part of an open source. Like it's free to use and free to go ahead, modify, inspect, and you can enhance or extend the features of these. And you can redistribute all of these as a different software altogether, or just contribute back to the community. So this is what we mean by open source, like the code which is like free to use and free to change. Yep, that's it. So evaluation of open source, if you see like open source has been over there like from the time when we started doing software development. Okay, but earlier back in mid of 1990s and mid of 19th century or 20th century, you can say, like the collaborative effort which is required to do a open source code was not available, and the collaborative thing doesn't used to work out. But later on, going ahead in 1985, the first foundation like GNU Foundation and the Free Software Foundations were created, and which brought up all the rules and regulations which needs to be followed in the open source and the governance model for all of the projects which are there in the open source. So this brought in a lot of collaborative stuff, and then people started collaborating with each other and then started making a better softwares and keep making those available to the public to use it for free. And after that, in 1999, like Apache Software Foundation was created, which brought in a lot of Apache projects and a lot of Java projects and the big data projects which into the foundation. And then a close set of committees were formed around these projects, which used to have their own set of regulations and usage guidelines for all of these projects. This enhanced the collaborative nature of this whole thing. And then recently, like in 2015, Cloud Native Foundation was created, which is basically a foundation where all the cloud native projects are available. This is how basically all the evolution of the open source happened over the time. And now we have a lot of projects which are there in open source, and a lot of active contributors who are actively contributing to the community in one way or the other, either by the code or doing the governance or doing the project management of those projects. So this is like why open source, why you should contribute, or why you should be a part of an open source project. So what do you achieve for this?
Yeah. So the first thing is community recognition. Once you become part of open source, there are various open source projects which will run you through, which you can become part of. And there'll be a lot of recognition, not just within the company. See, most of us who are working on enterprise software, right? Our visibility or our line of impact will be only within our company where we are working, or could be a small business group or your corporate company. But with the open source, what happens is your reach goes beyond a company, beyond a geographic, and then people can just easily find you with your GitHub profile. So what we mean by great on resume is like when you have a GitHub profile, the first thing what folks do is like go check your GitHub profile, see what contributions you have done over a period of time, what were the projects you were actively involved in. So at one stage, your resume also, no one has to turn to page 2 because the first page itself has a GitHub profile and that has a lot of details. And it also creates a lot of brand value for yourself. That is the third point which we want to bring in. And fourth is value proposition. So open source is not just because we are open source contributors, you shouldn't think that there is no pay involved in being part of open source. It's not true. So you can make open source as your career, but besides that, you can also have it like a side project. You can keep doing your regular work. Also spend like few hours in a week or so for contributing to open source. So what's in for you is all these 4 points. And I think this adds a lot of value for anyone. We'll move to the next slide.
Yeah, so we have talked about like collaborating and all of these things in open source. So to govern all of these things, there are different licenses which are available in open source, and all of the projects which are there in open source are some way or the other attached to any of these licenses. So these are different type of licenses. Some are the copyright license, some are the copyleft licenses. So these licenses will define whether these projects can be used in proprietary softwares, or whether it can be redistributed, or whether it has a software liability or not. All of these things comes under the licenses. So we need to make sure that the projects which we are contributing has a proper license, and which encourages you to go and do a collaboration between different companies and work together to achieve a plain goal. So for an example, if you take one of the licenses, like Kubernetes is one of the very recognized open source projects. So this project has an Apache 2 license. So if you go to any of the GitHub projects and if you click on the license file, majority of the projects will have this license file. So if you click on the license file, it will give you all the details of like what are permissions are available for these projects and what are limitation it brings. So for example, for this, like you have a permission to do a commercial usage of this project. You can do the modification, you can do the redistribution. You can also use this project in your patents, and also you can use privately. But it brings you a set of limitations that you cannot use your own trademark on these projects. And also it doesn't bring any liability or warranty if you are using these projects. You cannot come and blame that, okay, these were the like warranties or security flaws which were there in this project. So that limitation it brings in, and it has a condition that if you do any changes in the code, or if you do a redistribution or anything, you need to maintain the license and the copyright notice which comes with this project. And also all the state changes of these projects should be like figured out, or should be mentioned in the Git logs or any of the places. So this was one of the examples of the open source license. When you talk about open source foundations and open source projects, all of these, most of these projects are governed by one or the other foundations. The list of the foundations are like never ending, but these are some of the few very active foundations like Apache Software Foundation, CNCF Foundation, Eclipse Foundation. So there are multiple projects which are a part of these foundations. When we say that the project is a part of the foundation, means that project needs to follow all the rules and regulations for which are given in these foundations, and they need to have a communities, an active community, which are welcoming community, and which promote developers to come in and contribute to these projects. And we should not be like biased, or like it should be the collaboration should be open. So coming to these foundations and the projects, like most of the projects, like majority of the projects are available, are hosted on GitHub, but there are different source control projects where all other projects are also hosted, like Git and GitLab and all. But majority of the projects are there on GitHub, which has around 200 million plus projects. And out of these 200 million projects, around 28 million projects are the public projects, and rest are the private projects. So still, like 28 million public projects are like a way too good number for an open source stuff. And on those 28 million plus projects, like there are 73 million developers who are actively contributing to these projects, either in the way of a code, or in the documentations, or the tests, or just managing the stuff and triaging the issues and pull requests in GitHub. So in these GitHubs, most of the foundation, like Apache Software Foundation, all of the codes of the Apache Software Foundation is mostly there on GitHub. So if you see some plain statistics of ASF, there are around 201 committees which are available in the Apache Software Foundation, and these committees are managing around 355 projects which are there. So this is a big number, and there are a lot of famous projects like Apache Hadoop or Spark, and all of these things are there in ASF Foundation. And there are like currently like 36 pod links. Pod links are basically the committees, and there are multiple projects in these committees in one committee. So if we see the graph and all, like if we can see that almost like 50 committers every month they are being added into ASF, and that's a huge number, because these committers are like they have been contributing to these projects like over the year and so, and then gaining the trust and the trust in the committees, and then they are added as a committer. So 50 committers like every month is a very good number, and we have an active contributors which are like which have a linear growth in this. When we come to CNCF, it has around 740 plus members, and there are like 120 projects which are currently there in the CNCF Foundation. CNCF Foundation was like founded in 2015, so like 5 to 7 years old foundation, and having 120 plus active projects, that's a really good number. And like 142,000 contributors and the active developers are actually contributing to these 120 projects. So we can see like the number of projects which are increasing the CNCF. It's like it's going linearly, and as well as the end users who are like who are actually using these projects, the number for those has been growing steadily. And when we come to CNCF, like it's just not like only the 120 projects which are there in the CNCF are there, but CNCF actually gives you a complete landscape of all the projects which have been built around cloud native, and which can be used in one sense or the other to make your services in cloud better. So if you see in CNCF landscape, there are projects related to database, then streaming, messaging, application development, cloud infrastructure, orchestrations, runtime, and also if you are willing to contribute to any of the projects, like there are all the projects are available and in different areas. So say if you are interested in just application development and all, you can try to contribute to Helm. And so like there is at least one or the other project in all of your interest areas. Like if you are just focused on like service mesh type of things, so Istio, Linkerd, and all of those things are as well there in the open source. So yeah, that's about CNCF landscape. Okay, we have talked a lot about the foundations and where it is hosted and how many projects are there. But what is the real reason why companies or why individuals like should be contributing or using open source? So there was a survey which came out, and then a lot of companies and people like wanted to use open source because it used to save money and a lot of development effort, because you can reuse a lot of the code which is there already on the open source, and you can just put your 10% of the code, 10% of your business logics which you want, and then you can have a complete product ready. And this also increases the efficiency of these application developers, and there are no vendor lock-ins for these organizations. And if as an individual user, if you're running an application on Kubernetes, and since all other cloud platform providers use Kubernetes, so if your application is running on one of the Kubernetes from on AWS, the same application can run on Azure or on GCP. So those issues of vendor lock-in is also resolved, and it provides a great way of collaborating with different companies and different people and making a better software. So we have been talking about collaborations and all. So I have a very good example of the collaboration in VMware. We have developed this project called vSphere driver operator. This is basically a Kubernetes driver operator which brings in CSI, CFPI, and CNI drivers on vSphere platform. So this was a part of a joint innovation lab, which we run among VMware, IBM, and Red Hat. So all the three companies have been collaborating together to bring out and to develop this project. So this is only possible in open source. Like different companies are possibly the competitor companies are coming together and developing some project and making it open source. So this is a very good example of how collaboration works in the open source ecosystem. Then we have talked about all of these things. Now it's a time to jump into the place where all the action happens. So GitHub is the place like most of the project development and all the stuff happens. So I will just take you guys to GitHub, and then I will show you how are the things done in the GitHub. I think most of you guys have at some point of time when GitHub for any of the projects or like creating a profile and all. So once you are in GitHub and if you log in and if you sign in or create a new user, right? So you get a page like this, okay, and where like you can just create your own repositories and you can tell who you are and like what you have been doing, and this is just a stats like which will pull up what all contributions you have done on open source, and then you have an organizations which will tell you like which all organizations you are part of. And these are the pinned repositories. So pinned repositories are those repositories like which you want to showcase that you have been contributing to these repositories actively. So like you can pin your pin different repositories on your public profile, and you can say, okay, I've been contributing to these repositories recently. And then there is a timeline graph which will tell you what are contributions you have done over the time. So you don't need to track anything. It's like all the contributions which you have been making over the years. Like you can just go and see over there, and you can also see on what all organization and what all projects you have contributed to. And also you get a very good graph which says like how much time of your effort like you have spent in doing contributions on the code, or doing the code review, or just creating a bug, or like creating the pull request. So like you can just visit to any of the years like you want, and you can see all the contributions which you have done like way long back. So, and then on the top, you get all the list of repositories which you have been working on. So these are basically folks, and then you have projects and different stars. So, yeah. So do you have, so anyone, I just want to take a pause and see if anyone has any questions. Okay, a silence, I think so. It's, I think we'll go ahead. So coming to any of the projects, like say Kubernetes project, right? So if you go to any of these projects, you will see like the default pages, like the code, and you will land up and all the code is over here in different packages and repositories. And on the right hand side, you can see some basic details about your about the project, okay, and then what all releases it has. So you can click on these releases and basically download and use those releases. It will also have the readmes and everything, like what all steps you should follow to download and use this release. If you scroll down, you have contributors list. So you can see like there are a lot of active contributors which are there, like around 3,000 plus contributors who have been contributing to a single GitHub project. So that's a very good number. And then you can see in what language this complete project has been written. So you can see like over 96% of the code which is written in this Kubernetes is written in Golang. And with this on the top, we have a watch section. So around 3,000 people, like more than 3,000 people is watching this project, watching in the sense like whenever there will be a new GitHub, a new email, new bug or new issues or new pull requests or any change which happens in this projects, these all the people who are watching this project gets notified through an email. And then we have a fork. So if anyone wants to contribute to any to this project, like you can just click on the fork, and it will create a separate copy of this code on your own personal space, where you can like make different branches and do all the code comments, whatever you want. And then from there, those forks, you can raise a pull request to these repositories. And then we have a section called start. These are the people like they have started this project as like a favorite piece of the project, as their favorite ones. So we can see like 89,000 plus people have like started this project. So this is it. Then we have an issues section. Issue section is basically like if you are trying to use this project and you face some problem or difficulties, like you raise a question. It's a place like where you can interact with the community and discuss if you want to have some new features, or you want to suggest new things. You can just open an issue for that and discuss it over there. And then if you face some issues, or like if you want to create a bug, or if you want to do some enhancement and you want to propose something, like you can come and create an issue and like put down the stuffs over there. If you are a new committer, if you want to like contribute to these projects, what you can do is like, and you are new to this project, then you can just go and click on that help. Labels. In the labels, you can, like, most of the projects will have something related to like help wanted or need help or community help. Something type of a label will be there. So you can just click on these labels, and then you can get a list of all the issues which this community wants help from other developers. So you can pick any of these and start contributing, or you can, like, if this is completely new, you can just click on the good first issue label, and then this will be this label is basically for all of the issues which are very simple and can be like picked up by any new developer. So by this you can you can filter out all the issues which are open, and probably you can start your contribution journey to this project. Also, this is the pull request tab. Basically, when you do a fork of this project and you write some changes, or you do some enhancements, or you fix a bug in your fork, from that fork, basically you can create a pull request to this Kubernetes. So if we take an example of any of it, we can see when I say you can fork this project, so this is basically a fork of the project. So from this fork, this user is trying to send the code to Kubernetes master. So first is the repo name, and then is the branch. So from there, you are creating a pull request. So this is how like the pull requests are created. And once you create the pull request, you need to sign, if you are a new contributor, you need to sign the contributor license agreement. So contributor license agreement is basically an agreement saying that like whatever code you are writing, that you are giving full access to this project to use or reuse it. You cannot claim back that, okay, this is your code, this will be the project's code now. And also it will have a lot of legal stuffs in it. So by that, you basically, for every individual who is trying to contribute, they need to sign that agreement, and then only the code will be accepted into the project. So that is basically called a CLA check. So most of the projects already have it. Some of the projects do this manually, but most of the CNCF projects have this automated checks in place. And once all of those checks passes, then it comes to actual. So once you raise any of the pull request, any change, those changes are run by all the test cases, and we see that, or if all the test cases are passed, if all test cases are passed, then only the merge can happen. Otherwise, the merges are blocked. So all of these test cases are basically automated, and this is basically run in a dedicated infrastructure. GitHub also provides an free infrastructure where you can run the test cases, that is called GitHub Actions, which I will come into later into another project. But here in Kubernetes, like they run all of these in their dedicated infrastructures. So this is how like you can make sure that all the code and the CI/CD stuff of the projects are in place. And then we have different tabs for different type of projects. Some communities doesn't have wiki and all, but few projects like if vSphere driver, Kubernetes driver operator, right? Here we use GitHub Actions basically. So in GitHub Action, these are our CI/CD stuff, which is actually run in the GitHub infrastructure. So whenever a new PR comes, those PRs are run, creates a new job in the GitHub Actions, and the code is tested against those. Also, we have a project tab where you can basically do the. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
we can hear you, Asif.
Yes,
Okay, I just got a tab like internet unstable, so I thought that like it's gone.
No,
okay.
there was no glitch.
Okay, cool. So we have the project tab as well. So in the project tabs, like you can create your own project management type of a stuff where you can have your own dashboard. In those dashboards, like you can tell what all projects and what all issues are there on the requirement list, and then which all issues like people are already working on, and the pull request which needs a review or an attention. And then so like say if you want to like contribute to this, right? So you can just go and pick something from the requirement or the to-do list. Okay, assign it to your name, and then say if you assign this to name, you can just drag the card to the in progress stuff, and then you can start working on it. By this, like the members of this particular project will be like notified that okay, this issue has been assigned to a new member, and they have started working on it. So by this, you can do a easy project management projects. And then we have an interesting thing called insights. So in insights, basically you can see in insights, basically you can see like how many contributors have been actively contributing and what is the number of commits for each individual contributors over the time. So you can see right back from like 2015, like how many commits have happened and who has been the top committers and who has been contributing recently. You can also filter out like using the time if you just want in last 1 year, how many contributions have happened. So you can see all the top contributors as well. When you raise a PR, when you raise a pull request, and if you don't get any active reviews or anything, you can ping or you can just tag any of these top contributors to have a look and get a help. Like if some of the test cases is failing against your PR, like you can just tag these people and get the necessary help you want. With this, we also have like community standards and commits. And the code frequencies, and also you also have the list of forks. The fork is the like all the people who has forked and doing a parallel development on these. So you can see all of these people have their own fork, and they have been working on all these forks. Some of them contribute back to the mainstream, and some of them do a parallel development on it. So this is it, I think. And then
code coverage.
Yes. So code coverage is basically, I can just give you some example. Say when you raise a pull request, right? All the code cover, like there are the CI/CD checks which is run against your code, and in few places like you will have the code coverage enabled, where it will actually give you like how much code of lines, like say you have written 100 lines of code, how much of lines of the code is actually getting tested via unit tests, or how many lines of the code are actually reachable. So by this also, like we basically maintain the quality of the code which gets into the main line. So this is there. So this is all about the projects and all. Now the main question is like, how do you find which project you want to actually contribute to, right? So for this, there is something called GitHub trending. So if you just go and do a GitHub trending, okay. So in the trending, you can see all the projects which where there are a lot of commits or a lot of activities which are happening into these repositories. So you can filter this. Like say you are a Golang developer, okay, right? So you just and you are interested in contributing to Golang projects. So you can just filter out using the Go language and say you want like for this complete week which project has the highest number of activities. So you can just get a list of all the projects. So basically these projects, what it means by the GitHub trending is like the community which is contributing to this, and the people working on all these projects are like very active. There are a lot of codes which are coming in, a lot of reviews which are happening, okay, a lot of new documentations, so a lot of activities which are happening into these projects. So if you come across like, okay, you find Istio is also like one of it. So if you go to any of these projects, like here we can see like there are different contributors here. So like a lot of contributions are happening, and the last commit was like just 12 hours back. So by this, like you can find like which type of projects you really want to work on and which is like really active. A lot of time happens like the projects are there on the open source, but there is no active development happening on it. And in that, if you go and try to contribute it, it practically becomes difficult for your code to get merged and actually used by someone. So whenever you try to contribute to any of these projects, just see that if there is an active community or an active participation happening on these projects. So yes, by this I'm just giving an example of CNCF. CNCF has a very good statistics which tells you like what is the active contributions happening on their different projects. So if you take an example of Kubernetes, like you can just go and go to the page, and you will see all the list of companies who are actually contributing to this project. So if you can see, like VMware is also like one of the very good active contributors to Kubernetes, and it's like in the top 3. So like these, this says like the people who are contributing to these projects, like majority of them are associated with some organization or the other, but there are independent also, like there are people who are not associated with any company but still actively contributing to open source project. So this says like it's not always company who pushes to do the kind of open contribution. People voluntarily in their own time go and actually contribute and be a part of this community.
And also recently we have seen that many college students who are in their second year or even first year, right, they start becoming part of the community. And even when we go for campus, it's become a very hit line. I mean, it's like you're a cut over the rest. You're already contributing to open source, and then you have your presence across the world.
Very true. So right now, like a lot of people do a contributions, and especially as the college kids and all, like earlier in our times, like open source doesn't used to be there at all, or probably we were never like interested in doing it. But nowadays, like people right from the college starts contributing and like start developing or not contributing, at least using these open source projects. They have been like using all of these projects and getting the advantage of what open source ecosystem brings in. And yeah, that's pretty much. I can give a short example of like if people are new to how to contribute in GitHub and all, like I can just give a short example of doing a simple contribution. We have time, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So say if you pick an Istio, right, and if you want to just do like icebreaker and like do a simple contribution, right, you can just go to their docs and all. Then probably definitely you will find some small flaws or something. Okay, so you can just to start with it, like you can just go read their documentations, try out the things. You can get some bugs in the documentations, or some links will be broken, or like probably some quick start guides. There are some changes in the recent versions which are not updated in the README documentations. Even those you can just go and do those checks and actually start contributing. So my suggestion will be people who are very new to GitHub and all, okay, start with the documentation, start reading the documentation of these projects, start trying out their README guide and their quick start guides, and then you start with those contributions. And once you start with the documentations and all, then people will come to know, okay, you are using these projects, and then slowly over the time, like you can pick up some bugs and you can actually start fixing the real code. So say in this, like I was just going through it and I found like a simple, okay, there is an extra comma which is there in the README. This is basically not a very important thing, but still, if you want, like you can just go ahead and create a like open a pull request out of it. So if for that you just go to a README, okay, I would not suggest to do such a small such a small contribution. Okay, but for you to just show an example, I am showing this one. So if you just go through the documentations, you will see, okay, there is an extra comma which is there. Okay, so this doesn't makes a lot of sense, but you are just adding a small value saying that, okay, there was a small error and you are fixing it. So with that, you can just change the thing, okay, and then you will just do a propose change, then like update the README, okay, and you can just put your option like okay, contribution. So you can basically here you can specify why you are doing this change or something. Okay, and then you can directly do a propose change. So once you do a propose change, this basically Istio actually created a fork for me. Okay, and in that fork, it created a branch called patch1. Okay, now with this, what I'm doing is from my fork, which is Asif Istio, and the branch, I'm sending my code to Istio master branch. So I just go and click on a create pull request. Okay, and then just update README, right? So here you can follow like, okay, these are like checks defined by each project. Like you can tell what is this PR and what things this PR is changing. So since it's just a documentation, so I'm just removing all of this, like update the documentation. Okay, and this you can go and create a pull request. So yeah, that's it. So that's that was enough to be a contributor to open source. So that's this is that simple. So anyone, I think the only thing is like whoever is there in this call probably, and if you have not contributed till now to any of the projects, you can just take an example of this, go to any of the projects which is of an interest of yours. Like you can just go and do a simple contribution, and that way you can just start.
Yeah, thanks, Asif. Initially, how I started was there was a project on Docker, open source project. So I started using it and then started reporting bugs. So going through using it and then started reporting, and then eventually you will figure out where you should fix in order to solve the problem. So that's how I started. And Asif had been very active in open source. And the reason why Asif is in our team is because of his open source contributions. I mean, it was when we looked at all the profiles, he was standing on top of the rack there. There was one question which Vinal had asked. She's asking, like, after looking at the issues for a project, it's very overwhelming to understand which issue to pick up and difficult to understand the ask. Any suggestions what could be done? So we have Husaina tried answering it. Anything you want to add, Asif? Yeah, it's on Zoom chat.
Okay. So basically, like once you go to these issues and all, right, first thing is like see if you are completely new to this project. Okay, so I will suggest first you go with the good first issue. Okay, this good first issue is the issues which doesn't needs a complete background. Okay, you can just start contributing by doing some simple change. You also need to check when was this issue opened. Like it should be not like 3-4 years back or like 3-4 months back. If it's a new issue, like probably if it's an old issue, probably someone would have tried and someone would have worked upon it. Okay, but if it's a new issue, probably you can just it's an easy to pick. And then once you decide that okay, you will be working on this, you just put a comment that okay, this is nice, this issue is interesting for me, and like I would like to implement or like fix this issue in this way, and I'm going ahead with the progress, going ahead with the implementations. So people who have created an issue will just give a thumbs up or saying like, okay, this the understanding of this issue is correct, and this is what we want. Like you can go ahead with the implementation. So this is the way.
Yeah, and for some of the open source projects, we have bi-weekly calls for India friendly time and US friendly time. So once you subscribe to these and become an active member, right, in the project description itself, there'll be this Zoom links. So once you register, it will get added to your calendar. You can join those calls, and then you can ask some specific questions, or you can get a better understanding. And besides that mode of communication, we also have Slack. So there is public Slack, especially for Kubernetes, right? There is something called kubernetes.slack.com. So there you will see projects like Cluster API, etcd, and like several other projects which are related to Kubernetes. So, and those channels will have thousands of people across the world. Any questions you have, any prioritizations or any bug you're hitting, and you want to know some quick workaround which is not already there, you can post your questions in those channels. They are very, very helpful because you have people around the world. You'll get quicker responses as well.
Lakshmi, this is Sai here. I joined little late. I'm not sure whether you covered this question. In case if you have a custom built product which we are exploring the open source, is someone in this forum can help us how to navigate and to make it as an open source?
You're saying currently it is a private repo. The code is in a private repo. Yeah, we can do that, Sainath. So usually what we do is when we start an open source project, we directly don't go and create a project in GitHub. First, it will be in our project. And when it comes to a reasonable shape and context is when we lift and shift it into GitHub. So yeah, you can reach out to me and Asif after this.
Sure, Lakshmi. We'll do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
This is an example of this project. Like this project was built in it was built in house with some basic set of features, and then moved it to open source, and then the active development started directly in the open source.
Great.
Yeah. And this is one of our own project where Asif and me also contributed.
And this
Yeah,
forum
any
is
question?
Sorry, is this only VMware forum or outside VMware forum are part of this group, Lakshmi?
People outside VMware are also part of this group, Sainath.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a follow-up question. So you mentioned that the current page that you're showing is something that you started off and then put it for open source and open contributions. But my question is more related to CRDs, right? So wherein a set of things are already set up, and then you follow those guidelines, and then you choose which particular like you mentioned, there's Apache, since CNCF, multiple places where you can actually start putting out your project. So how do you decide where you're going first, or which one to choose?
Okay. Yes. So what happens is basically, say, that's what like communities and all those things which I explained in my earlier slides, right? There are communities, and then the projects are associated with the communities. When I say communities and organizations, these are basically the first part in your project. So there are different organizations which are already there. Okay, like VMware, and then you have Apache, and then you have CNCF and all of those things. So if you want to be a part of this community, you can just go and host your project over there. You can contact the ASF guys, and then you can incubate your project directly over there. Or if you don't want your project not to be a part of any of these foundations, you want to run it individually as an individual soul, just like Istio, what Istio does. Istio doesn't contribute to any of the foundation. It has its own set of rules and regulations, and it works on that. So you can choose what organizations you want to be in, and then it's completely free. You can bring in your project over there. So if you want to be a part of an ASF, you can bring your project into ASF Foundation. You need to go through the incubation process and then contribute your project over there. If you want to be part of a CNCF also has a incubation process. You develop your project on the GitHub in your own personal space. In your own personal space means in your own organization, and then you move those codes to the foundation. When I say in your own organization, what I mean is say this is your repositories, right? It was there. So for example, there is a docs which I created my own. So I can develop this documentations on my own repository organization. So every user, when they create a account on GitHub, they get their own org. But if you directly want to be a part of, say, we developed this Kubernetes driver operator, which was supposed to be a part of a VMware Tanzu organization. So we directly put that project into VMware Tanzu organization. If we are developing some cloud native projects and we want to put it in the CNCF, we can put into the CNCF organization. But we need to follow the whole process of what CNCF brings in for incubating new projects. And if you don't want to follow any of those projects, you can host that project in your space itself. And still it will be an open source that people can contribute to it.
So there is no company guidelines as such that tells you that, for example, VMware is a platinum contributor for CNCF. So there's no particular company guideline?
Company guidelines, say if you are developing this open source for your company, right? So basically for all the companies, there are some dedicated organizations where all the projects from that company or organizations are hosted. So for example, VMware Tanzu, if you go to Red Hat, right? Red Hat will also have their own space, or say IBM. So IBM will have its own organization, and all the projects from which comes from the IBM, mostly are hosted in this particular organization. So it all depends on the companies and the business use case. If there is some project from the VMware, which needs to be there in the CNCF, that won't come in the VMware Tanzu organization. It will directly go to CNCF org.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I think Rena's question, if I understand more in detail, I think she means even though she is part of one organization, if she wants to contribute to others, does she have to follow any guidelines? Yeah, probably Dina. So what happens there is, in case you don't want to be part of, you can always be a contributor besides contributing to your own company projects. But based on the guidelines, and the moment you sign the CLA, right, you will figure out like what are the do's and don'ts kind of information also you will get. And there is no restriction on how many projects also you can contribute to.
Okay. And LG, you mentioned about you started raising bugs for Docker. Similarly, can you give also requirements? I mean, probably I do not know Go much and I do not want to contribute there, but I want a feature in that particular product that I'm using.
Yeah, so then you can file a GitHub issue saying a feature. There is a label called the feature, and features are like asks. So you can ask, and then you can say that, this is what I'm looking for. So even that way, by raising an issue, you are becoming a contributor because you're helping to add a new feature and also give them a justification like why you want it. So they will understand what are the different use cases in which you are trying the product.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dina. Yeah, I think if there are no more questions, then thank you all for joining. Thanks, Asif. Thanks, Narmada, Kanika, for hosting us.
Thanks, LG. Thanks, Asif, for that wonderful session on open source. I think the audience got what, how, and that was the first kickoff session we were intended on the open source series. So hopefully everyone got why open source and what is open source and how to contribute. I think we did a contribution. We spent some time on it. I'm seeing people are said a good session. So thanks, Asif, and thanks, LG, for making it a valuable session for all of us. And wishes a happy weekend for everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, happy weekend.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks all. Thanks all. Very good session. Informative.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Ainar.